Welcome to episode 52 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Mike Joy Doesn't Give an F edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. I'm your host, Philip Matthew, and I'm here with my co-host, Josh Fine. What's good, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great. Yeah, I have to say I agree with you on Mike Joy not giving a crap anymore. Seems like he's just telling it like how it is. But, we got a lot of stuff to talk about with NASCAR, F1, Gatornationals, and all the good stuff about racing. So, we'll have to talk about this on today being St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody listening if you guys want to celebrate. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm having a beer for St. Patrick's Day in my Davy Allison koozie. It's turned green kind of because of the it looks green in the picture, so it actually works out.
Nice.
So happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone out there, whether you actually Irish or you celebrate because you drink beer. Definitely a lot to cover here. We're getting busy on the GSP. Other people want to copy us because they don't have original thoughts. Well, you can F them. They can F themselves. We're going to talk about NASCAR briefly at one of the worst racetracks in the world now because they ruined it. Because we need to have the final race there because they have a cactus for a flag stand. I think that may be the only reason why they have that race there because it's in the middle of nowhere, Phoenix. It's not even Phoenix, it's Avondale. I'd like somebody to come back and tell me where Avondale is relative to actual Phoenix. Crappy racetrack, two crappy races. The noted whiner from that Truex kid from Mayetta, New Jersey. One on Sunday, then in Saturday, Gumby continued his reign towards a repeat championship while Justin Allgaier did what he usually does, which is choke, and Gagson oiled down the whole entire track like a douchebag waterhead that he is. We'll talk about Formula One testing at Bahrain as we are a week away from the Formula One season opener. Thoughts on what transpired there, what we may be seeing. We'll also give our thoughts on the great Murray Walker, the voice of Formula One and in British motorsport for many, many years, absolute icon. You would consider him to the same level as like a Ken Squire for us here in America, or Chris Economaki type of guy, with his iconic voice and his passion. I think it is a combination of both of those guys because of his ability to write, but then also an interesting voice, but then the Murrayisms that he had, just the sheer passion he had for the sport. NHRA, of course, debuted last week. Gatornationals, first time winner in Top Fuel, as Josh said, Josh Hart, never heard of him, but he's a winner in his Top Fuel debut. And then 95-year-old Greg Anderson, no, it was his 95th win. He turned 60 and it was 95th win, but he basically looks like he's 95. Matt Smith continues the EBR Buell dominance of his team with the speed over 200 miles an hour in the final. And then you have J.R. Todd winning, former Funny Car champion. We'll get into all of that. And wherever else we can get into here on the GSP, we'll talk about the 12 hours of Sebring and other parts there, the Roundup with the Daytona 200. Yes, it still exists. It still happens. It had a great finish. Corvette returning to Le Mans. Probably let Josh talk about that because even I haven't been able to. I know they got new paint schemes for the 12 hours of Sebring this weekend. The iRacing challenge will be starting again tomorrow, actually, since we're doing this on Wednesday, the 17th. It'll be starting again on the 18th, leading up a month away before they start their season at Baba, as Lee Diffie would say. We'll preview NASCAR at Atlanta. And we'll get into anything else with football. We got NFL free agency, the 49ers made a big splash in re-signing Trent Williams and getting Alex Mack so that we actually have a center, since we haven't had one basically for 2 years. Niners have got other things to work on. Some of the other players have been signed by whatever. Seattle signed Witherspoon. New England signed Kendrick Bourne for whatever reason. But God bless him, he got a lot of money. So we'll see if anybody's going to be able to actually throw to him. I know that Cam Newton can't anymore, but we'll get into all that and Josh's sim racing as well. So yeah, let's start the show with the Cup Series debacle at Phoenix, which was typical, boring, non-essential, useless race. I don't understand why they even bother going to Phoenix twice. It's just a waste of time. 3 Hendrick cars went to the back, 2 Ware cars, and of course Quinn Huff, who's probably one of the worst drivers in the history of the NASCAR Cup Series. He is just an abomination. Truex was the winner. He led the second most laps in the race. Joey Logano was the dominant car, won one stage, finished second in the first stage. Other than that, Hamlin, Berger, and Ryan Blaney were the other 3 guys, and then 2 guys along with Brad Keselowski. So the Penske cars, they finished second and third in the November race. Denny Hamlin finished 4th. So they were all up there again. Clyde came from tailback again, but he didn't have as good of a car, probably because he didn't have traction control, and because they didn't want him to win here. And he finished 5th, Harvick 6th, Larson, Byron. So all the Hendrick cars failed inspection. The ones that failed inspection all finished in the top 10, and Alex Bowman didn't, and he finished 13th. I love how that works. Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney were your top 10. Josh, I guess the takeaway from this deal was Truex. It's only his second win with his new crew. Or I say new crew chief. It was last year was a new crew chief, but James Small, and winning at Phoenix, a track that he hadn't won at. Which, when you consider what he's been on since 2016, winning 26 races or 25 races, is kind of surprising that he's only had 2 wins in the last year and change. Are we looking at Truex differently now that he went out there and won this race at Phoenix towards the whole entire championship? Or is this just, it's a typical Joe Gibbs? There's 3 teams that are standout teams right now. Gibbs is always solid, whether it's Hamlin or Kyle Busch, or it used to be Kyle Busch, would be a Phoenix. And now Truex has been able to benefit from some of that tech.
Yeah, it's definitely possible with Truex winning this early in the season. Last year he didn't win until the Martinsville delayed race in June, in the middle of June, and he's only won 2 races the last 2 seasons so far. So it's a little bit surprising that he hasn't been able to have more wins than what he had last year, or actually, 2018, 2019, and when he was super dominant. But for Truex, it's he won early this time, and looking at his results, he's finished 3rd, 6th, and now 1st. So been on a kind of a roll, I guess, with his season, excluding the Daytona Speedway and Daytona Road Course. So I guess maybe he could have potential to finish, top 5 at least, or top 10 every week, and then get a win. But I think he's just had a lot of poor luck getting wins the last year or so. So I think with a new crew chief now, maybe they'll they had that year of adjustment period, I guess, to get used to each other, and maybe this year they've got it all figured out, and definitely probably benefiting from Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch and even Christopher Bell. So I think possibly Martin Truex, maybe he can pick up 3 or 4 more wins later in the season. But I can't see him winning on the level that he did from 2016, 2018. Not sure if that's quite possible because I think the Cup Series overall is a little bit more competitive than what it was during that time. But I do think that he can probably get 3 to 4 more wins during the season.
Yeah, I was just checking out the news about Suarez, and he's going to have a Mexican crew chief too. So that'll be great. That'll trigger certain people. They'll probably
Interesting.
bring out the bomb sniffing dogs, and they'll probably look specifically at Daniel Suarez and his new crew chief for this weekend because Travis Mack got um, suspended along with Jeremy Bullins for Brad Keselowski. So I'm sure for all the ones that are triggered about that, then don't worry about it. They'll racially profile for Daniel Suarez and Bubba Wallace for you guys. So you can rest easy on that, assholes. But it'll be cool when they actually get in the racetrack. That'll be something. I wonder if they'll actually bother to cover that. That's quite an interesting little story there. In regards to the race, I mean, for Truex, we'll see. The 18 is definitely not where he wants to be, I'm sure. Hamlin's got a huge points lead. He's sitting pretty, really. He's got a lot of points. Basically a full race right now over Brad in the point standings with Joey Logano in third. And Martin Truex right now theoretically leads the playoff points by 1 over Kyle Larson. So the situation is these 16 cars that are in the playoff right now are the 16 drivers, like the top 16 in points. So, Richard is on the cutoff. Bowman is 3 points out. Buescher is 4 points out. The guy that everyone gets triggered by in the 23 car, Bubba Wallace, is in 19th in points. So that's better than that team, that 5th Gibbs car has been running in recent years. They usually would not have as high of a point total over the last 2-3 years, whatever they've been with Toyota or D Burrito or Chris Bell. Cold Custard is in 20th in points. Ross Chastain, who's building a rivalry with Kyle Busch, and hopefully they start fighting, which will be cool. Bring out some tables and chairs and do some weapons matches. That'll be great. In terms of the rookie battle, it's not much of one because Chase is struggling and so is Anthony Alfredo. But Anthony Alfredo at least is beating Quinn Huff in points. So there is that. That's about all I'm going to do with the Cup race because I couldn't deal with it. That Cup race sucked. I know that you mentioned, I know the point, I guess, and I'll throw to you on that, Josh, in terms of the grip strip, why we're named the grip strip podcast is because of the grip strip that they use at certain racetracks because NASCAR doesn't know how to make a good rules package. I think at the end of the day, it didn't really work. It's probably because Badger doesn't know how to make a good tire. NASCAR doesn't make a good rules package. And then you add the fact that what was Phoenix International Raceway, a perfectly fine, challenging flat track, got ruined by the Daytona Beach Mafia at ISC, takes all the grass away, basically wastes a huge amount of apron to do whatever the hell they did with it. And then they made the backstretch into this stupid, it's like the Paul Ricard of ovals. That's basically what they've done. They literally have turned Phoenix International Raceway into the Paul Ricard of ovals. It's all paved. I wish what they should do is they should just go the way they did it at Ricard, where they go and put different colors for the different lanes. So then it'll be like Technicolor, and then it'll just have people having fits watching races at Phoenix. If they really want to go hard, that's what they should do. Like go and make one lane orange, the blue, and like their colors, and then make one green for the stupid cactus flag stand. Let's just go that far personally. But I mean, I'll throw to you on that too. The grip strip definitely has failed again. That's become a trend on the Cup circuit, and even on the Saturday race. But I think we're getting to a point where they need to stop using PJ1 and they need to actually either lay down rubber or do something else. I don't know, like actually let them practice. I don't know, something other than PJ1 because they don't know how to apply it.
Yeah, I mean, with the grip strip there, the PJ1, I mean, there was way too much of it on the racetrack. I mean, there was such a contrast between the lanes that was in on the high side, and then there was nothing on the low side. And it's like they really wanted to focus on putting in the top, at least in turn 1 and 2, or the old turn 3 and 4. The I think on I guess turn 3 and 4, the old 1 and 2. I mean, this is hard. It's confusing me even, but the low lane right there was just I mean, it was still the same like how it's been, but you could tell like they were really trying to focus even on that side of the track to make it work. But I mean, Phoenix, like the old turn 1 and 2, or the old turn 3 and 4 is supposed to be a corner where you can, like, at least how they have it now, where you can really dive on the low side, and now they're trying to focus in on the high side, make that work. But it was just, there was just too much of the PJ1 there, way too much of it, and I mean there really wasn't any action on the track the whole weekend. I mean, it was boring. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, do either of us watch this race? No,
No.
it was garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, we could catch the highlights on YouTube, and that's all we had to miss was just the 15-minute clip on YouTube from NASCAR. Credit to them on that, but the stuff was too much there. I agree with you on that idea of making it like Paul Ricard, just painting the lanes different colors. I mean, you could extend it to the dog leg and put that there, and then you could visualize like the type of lanes these guys are driving, especially on the restarts. Like, we've seen Brad Keselowski almost drive to the front of the pit wall and almost clip that. So that's the amount of ridiculousness that we get when we see Phoenix, and it really doesn't benefit anybody. So they used to say Darlington should be turned into a pond. Well, maybe are there any lakes in Arizona? I have no idea. So maybe they should make an artificial lake right there with Phoenix and turn that into a lake.
They could take some of their politicians that they send out there and they can probably bury them there. It'll be good.
Yeah.
Like they could take that Chief Joe or whatever, that Sheriff Joe Arpaio and
Yeah.
Kristen Cinema, and the two of them, you can bury those idiots right in that apron in 1 and 2, just like they buried Jimmy Hoffa at Giant Stadium back in the day, supposedly. But
yeah, but that's all we got to say about
yeah,
Phoenix.
I mean, that's just it's insane to me how bad they've ruined that racetrack. I mean, if you're gonna really do the redo, don't keep the front, keep the pits on the what is now the backstretch. Use the dog leg properly. Put the pits out closer towards the one grandstand there is, and then utilize the infield. Make the infield even bigger. Make a road course. Do something like they had a road course there. I think they still do. I have no idea because they never use it anymore. But utilize that infield and make it a fan experience. Don't and open up the place. If you're going to get rid of all the grandstands on what was the original front stretch, you're not going to have any grandstands past the dog leg. And they're all going to be going to Las Vegas on restarts. It's stupid. You could because there's so many things wrong with that racetrack, and the racing is terrible. It's not a aesthetically pleasing racetrack. The camera angles are terrible. The spotters are SOL because they're sitting in the suites or whatever the hell in 3 and 4, and there's crap going on hundreds of yards away, and they'll say, "Oh well, that's how it is every week." No. The angles at Phoenix are as bad as you can get in the whole entire sport, and I mean, for fuck's sake. And what's worse is that they're going there for that finale. And I'm sure Chase Elliott will fail inspection again. I'm sure Kyle Larson will fail inspection again. Gibbs car will fail inspection. And then they'll all come up front in 15 25 laps. They'll probably throw a competition yellow just for fun. And you just stop it. You know, if we're gonna have freaking what's the wrestling, the one owned by your boy Shad Khan,
AEW.
AEW. If we're gonna have AEW, let's just have AEW for real. You know, put the ring there. They have so much room. Let's just have AEW. Let's have Cody Rhodes come out there and drive a car. Let's go and have let's have Mox go out there. Let's just do it. Let's just make it wrestling, because that track is a shithole. It literally, I mean, now that Chicagoland, they dumped Chicagoland, they dumped Kentucky. You know, you have Kansas, one of the worst racetracks ever made. Texas is one of the worst racetracks ever made. And in terms of configurations, they have figured out a way to destroy Phoenix. Phoenix is in line to be the worst racetrack we run at, and now they have the championship. It's atrocious. And then you add Nashville Super Speedway to that mix. Oh my God. This is going to be brutal. The Nashville, I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, for the people, the loyal followers, don't worry about the Nashville Super Speedway recap. There ain't going to be one unless somebody gets run over, somebody fights. If that Pastor Helms goes and does something where he fucks his wife on TV, that's about it. There's going to be no recap, because that race is going to suck really bad. Any 550 race sucks. They've ruined Homestead because of the damn 550 rules package. So NASCAR, as we go along now that Formula One's starting, we're probably not going to be talking about it as much because we don't have to. There's plenty of NASCAR places if you really want to go to. You can go on Talking in Circles and listen to NASCAR coverage for sure. That's a great place to listen to. And that's a shameless plug because I'm on that show. And if you also want F1 only content, you can listen to F1 Grid Talk podcast because I go on that one too. And Josh has got open invite on there. We're got IndyCar coverage. I'm sure we could shill for the Indy Sports Car podcast. They're one of the best. They're an OG, Frank and Missy. And so, I mean, the reality is we give respect to the ones that care about us and take care of us, the OGs. Frank has been, he was the one that put us together. And when we talk about IndyCar racing, we think about him and Missy and their new baby, their son. And he's a little cutie. And I love that little boy, even though I've never met him. I'm going to one day, and I'm going to be saying "Ride on, rock on," just like Frank, because I want to talk about something positive, because Phoenix makes me angry. Speaking of nonsense, we'll go to the Xfinity race where Gumby, Cindric. I mean, here's my whole entire take here on this deal. It's a case of when is Austin Cindric going to lock up the regular season title, and how many whatever playoff points will Austin Cindric have before we get to the playoff, whenever the hell their playoff starts, or Bristol or somewhere. Wait, that's my question. I don't even care about the race. The fact that Gagson did his typical Gagson thing, blows up and puts oil all over the racetrack like an LCD inbred dipshit that he is, and he deserves to get punched in the balls and then power bombed into like a vat of flaming hot liquid. But yeah, I guess that's my question, because that Xfinity race was also unwatchable, and that includes the fact that they made Suarez and Logano sit there with cue ball, and that was that was a brutal combination. I feel bad for both of them, honestly, in that.
Yeah, the Xfinity race, I mean, like you said earlier, like Gumby won, Noah Gragson was on fire. Allgaier wrecked off of turn 2 on the final restart, or off of turn 4 on the final restart, whatever turn it is. They keep changing things. And yeah, that was basically the race. But I mean, at least there was one positive there. Brandon Brown finishing third place and possibly even working out a deal with Marcus Lemonis and maybe getting Camping World sponsorship for that car. and it's good for that car. They have no sponsor, and now they may have backing from Camping World for at least one race. So, hey, good for him. He's been a grinder. Definitely has been showing for the last year that he can get it done on the racetrack and get good results. And he's definitely been able to go up there and fight for a position with the established competitors on the Xfinity series, like Gumby, like Noah Gragson, like Justin Allgaier. So that was good. But I mean, as far as as far as Austin Cindric going, I mean, he may have the thing locked up for the regular season by the time they get through the summer. I mean, well, probably the middle of the summer, because we've got the road courses coming up in like May and like June with in beginning of July with Indianapolis, Road America, Coda, Sonoma. So all those tracks, I don't know about Sonoma for the Xfinity, but point being, like, we've got a lot of road courses coming up in the summer months, so that's in his favor, and I bet he could probably win all of them. So definitely have that one locked up with a couple of races to go for the regular season, and then we'll see how it goes for the Chase playoffs. We'll see how Austin Cindric does there, but he'll have it locked up early. I agree.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. After this race at Atlanta, they're going to basically be off for a while. Their schedule just gets really choppy. They'll be off because of Bristol, then they'll be off for Easter. They'll run the first of 4 Dash for Cashes at Martinsville with another off week, Talladega, another off week. So basically, after this weekend at Atlanta, they're going to be, was it 1, 2, 3, 4 off weeks in 6. Like they're only going to run 2 races in the next month and a half, which is really dumb. And then the next race they'll get off is because they'll have a 2-week break because of the Olympics, because NBC has to show it. I'm looking at the schedule here. Regular season ends at Bristol. I thought it's whatever. Who cares? Las Vegas, Talladega, Roval. Christ, and the Texas, Kansas. Yeah, yeah, that is a pretty terrible group of racetracks there. Outside of Martinsville, there isn't one redeeming racetrack in that playoff, really, in the Xfinity series. But for my thinking here in terms of where Cindric will have this thing locked up, he's going to have it locked up before. I think he's going to have the regular season title basically on lock before they go on the Olympic break. I think it'll be done in the middle of July, and he'll be free rolling going for the next month, which that includes 2 road course races at Watkins Glen and Indianapolis, where he was one of the fastest cars last year, but Chase Briscoe beat him. He won the Daytona Oval earlier this last month. He's good at Michigan, Darlington, whatever, Richmond, Bristol. I think he's had fast cars at a lot of these places here in the last few months. Basically, it all switched. The light switch went off on Cindric, I think, somewhere in the summer last year, and he's been on a heater ever since. And I mean, it's crazy. I never thought that Cindric had this in him. He's not your typical daddy's money guy, and that it's not all the whole money thing. He's shown talent in other series. He's usually run over people like other daddy's money guys, but now he's maturing and he's really figuring things out, and it's a positive thing. I mean, everybody knew he was going to end up being in a Penske car. He's probably going to be in the 12 car at some point. The only person I think at Penske Racing right now that's definitely guaranteed that isn't Austin Cindric's Joey Logano. Brad probably is not going to be there much longer. Blaney at some point has to take a step forward, or he's probably going to get nailed. So Gumby's going to be in one of those cars. I honestly feel like Tyler Reddick's going to go to Penske. I just do, because there's no way he's going to sit at RCR and play second fiddle to that piece of garbage, Austin Dillon. And they're a third-rate team anyway. So It's I think Penske is going to make some moves here to solidify their future and kind of put themselves in a place to where they can compete, because Gibbs is all older. They've locked up two older guys in Hamlin and Truex. Kyle, they're never going to get rid of Kyle Busch. But at some point, you're going to have to put Ty Gibbs in a car. Chris Bell is that first step, that first pillar of the future of Joe Gibbs Racing, because Toyota is not going to let him go. So he's going to get the time, unlike other guys that have been at Gibbs, whether it's Joey Logano, Daniel Suarez, or Eric Jones. They'll give Chris Bell the time, and he's already proven that early on that he has the chops. So, but Ty Gibbs is going to be in one of those cars, probably the 18 or the 11. And then you have to find two other guys. Who are those other two guys going to be? Maybe Bruckshot Jones, which will be hilarious, or by who knows. That's the thing. That's really the problem. We don't really know. Maybe John Hunter comes into play if he doesn't go to 2311. But yeah, that's something that we'll have to look at. I think the way things are in terms of the Xfinity series, kind of went off on a tangent there, but it's all right. That's what this show is about. I go off on tangents. If you don't like it, screw you. Cindric has a 47-point lead on Hemrick, who I feel so bad for him. I mean, not because I don't feel bad for him in terms of life, because at the end of the day, he gets to make love to Kenzie Rustin for the rest of his life. And they have a beautiful baby daughter, and he's going to be able to race super late models or late models. If this doesn't work out, I think he's going to have a nice career doing that. If this doesn't come off, he's second in points. That's the thing. Like, he's second in points. He can't win a race, but he's second in points. He's a points racer. If this was a full season championship, I tell you, if it was full season championship racing, Daniel Hemrick is the perfect person for that, which means he has to get out of NASCAR, up the Big Three series. He has to just go and run the Advanced Auto Parts, whatever, the same championship that Josh Berry won last year for junior motorsports. That's what he has to do with late models.
Oh, the Cars series,
the Cars Tour, or whatever. Like, he has to do whatever it is to just get out of these series. It's not his style. But we'll see. I think Hemrick is on the cusp. I think you look at Jeb Burton's third in points. He did similar when he drove for Turner Motorsports in the trucks and won races there. I think both of those guys are going to win, hopefully, at some point. Harrison Burton, of course, has proven he can win. Haley, Brandon, like the bottom end of the top 12 here. Brandon Brown is in a good spot. He's got a good gap on Justin Allgaier. He's got 23 points on him, and Herbst, because he's terrible, is on the cutoff. And then you have, after that, you have Michael Annett, of course, who's literally one of the worst drivers I've ever seen. Landon Castle's in play, actually 9 points out. And it's kind of intriguing right now. Gagson hasn't had a finish of value, I think, all year, but he's only 17 points out. So he'll get there. You figure Gagson's going to get in there. Look at some of these other drivers there. Ty Gibbs has only raced 2 races this year, and he's ahead of I don't know how many guys that have run every race, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's that's why you talk about the depth of the series. I guess that's where it goes. But we'll go from that to the Formula One recap here in regards to testing at Bahrain. And first off, we'll talk about the great Murray Walker. I talked about on the Grid Talk podcast. They just posted it earlier today, where you can find podcasts. It's also on YouTube at the F1 Chronicle page, where Murray Walker, to me, it's like, because the other two guests in Owain and I'm trying to remember who, Louis, were both much younger. They weren't able to experience Formula One with Murray Walker. Of course, I wasn't able to experience Formula One with Murray Walker per se. I've watched video clips, or I've watched, different things and I've actually saw things in, from back in the day, especially with Senna and stuff like that. And he was a legendary guy. He's kind of, like I said earlier, he's like Ken Squire. He's like Chris Economaki to British motorsport. And like, there was a video clip I was watching on YouTube where Jeremy Clarkson had Murray Walker announce snooker, which is like a pool, different type of pool. And he made that game sound like it was the greatest thing that's ever happened in the history of sport. And it was hilarious, but it was Murray Walker. It's like, I joke around, I say, it's like he could read, it's the way I look at Tracy Morgan. He could read the phone book and I'd laugh. It's the same way as like Murray Walker could read the phone book and it would be interesting. And it was the British Touring Car Championship in 1992, the finale at Silverstone, and some of the lines he brought out in that, I'm going for first, Cleveland says, as Steve Soper goes past him and he's flipping, John Clone's flipping the bird to Steve Soper because he passed him and blocked for his teammate Tim Harvey. Like that race is iconic for British Touring Car Championship fans, and all the crap that happened. Oh man, but that's like, for me, that's like Murray Walker in a nutshell. I don't know about you, Josh. You could chime in here in regards to what you experienced, or whatever experiences you've had listening or seeing clips, or what you saw on social media since his passing. It's a legendary person. I think it would be similar. The takeaways would be similar to what if and when that time comes for Ken Squire. I think it would be similar to that because of how much he's meant to so many people.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was a little too young for Murray Walker. I mean, he last announced Formula One in 2001, and that was even before I got into NASCAR, or like a year or two before that. So I didn't really get to experience him watching him or hearing him on live TV. But over the years, getting into Formula One, seeing clips, from the late '90s, the early '90s, during that era with Senna and all of that, like, and Schumacher's rise to dominance. Just hearing his voice, the way he announces races, and like you said, like the quotes that he had. I mean, I don't really have any like specific quotes of Murray Walker off the top of my head, but he really made it interesting, and really knew how to tell a story with the races there. And I mean, the clip that I do remember from Murray Walker is this commercial that he did with Damon Hill for like Pizza Hut, and that one was really hilarious.
Yeah,
the way he made it sound.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
Damon Hill had. Yeah, I love that commercial because I was a Damon Hill guy, unfortunately, and he was strangling. Yeah, that's so beautiful, because the fact is, Murray Walker announced Graham Hill. He was able to announce his father, and then he had such a close relationship with Damon, and he was crying. He couldn't talk when Damon Hill won the world championship at Suzuka in 1996, because it meant so much to him because he was so close to their family. But he also took pride, such a great pride, a national pride in, all the British drivers and you'll say, oh, well, that's bias. I'm like, look, at the end of the day, you announce for the BBC for how many decades? At the end of the day, that's part of the thing. You're going to have a national view. It's the way that it's part of the way they call racing. It's not as much here in America because you really can't do that, but you could tell with some of these announcers, some of the way they behave, how they go and have a national view. But then, like, you think about the Japanese announcers when they go and they freak out and they're like blowing loads all over the booth when Takuma Sato wins the Indy 500. I mean, yes, if they blow loads because the fact is it doesn't happen often that Takuma Sato wins races, but then also think about it. That's it. You know, like you're winning the biggest race in motorsports, or one of the biggest races in motorsports, and he's Japanese, and like that doesn't happen. You know, like it's the same kind of deal. It's not as much because, of course, the British motorsport, you go back decades of great racers, you know, Sterling Moss, and you know, you think about Surtees, and the list goes on and on. And in terms of basically my time being on this earth, you think about, baby, everyone talks about Mansell and you know, then his whole deal, and you think about Damon Hill, and then go on from there to where we are now with, of course, Lewis and George Russell, amongst others, and Lando and all. But yeah, Murray Walker's loss, David Croft, you had Martin Brundle, of course, who was his last partner in the booth. You know, there's so many people, and it's something like how we were talking about Mike Joy and the connections. Everybody, if you think about NASCAR broadcasting and the ones that actually were good, a lot of them aren't employed anymore for whatever reason, but they all have a connection to Ken Squire. And there are people that suck too that have connections to Ken Squire, like Tog, but Mike Joy, you think
Alan
about
Bestwick.
Dave Despain, Alan Bestwick, you know, all the MRN crew, probably in some way, shape, or form, going back to the great, you know, Barney Hall and all that. They all had the camaraderie and the connection together. You know, like that's really, they all, like, it's a Squire Hall, isn't there? That's the one part of the NASCAR Hall of Fame is a Squire Hall award, right, for announcing or something. Like they have that.
Yes, media excellence.
Yeah, the Media Excellence Award. Yes, so there you go. You know, and I'm not trying to kill him. I'm not trying to do a Dan Le Batard and kill somebody that ain't dead. You know, but I'm trying to go and give a comparison or an understanding of what it would mean, why it was such a big deal. Because we lost Chris Economack a few years ago, the Dean American Motorsports writing.
That was almost a decade ago, man.
Yeah.
That was 2012.
Yeah, and yeah, we lost him so long ago. But the point is, his writing, his ability, his voice, everything, it still resonates. And there's so many people and so many things that still exist because, or have existed because of Chris Economaki and Jersey Guy and all that. But you know, and Squire's the same thing, and those, and you think about CBS broadcasts going back to the 90s, and those two guys are together. Ned Jarrett, and you had Neil Bonnet before his untimely death, and you had Buddy Baker. And I mean, now we're starting to lose a lot of the real passion and the history of the sport, and it's probably why Junebug matters more. No matter how good, bad, or indifferent his broadcasting may actually be, I don't think it's as much to do with him as it is some of the idiots he has to work with. But he's literally the one bastion that's left in terms that actually cares about the history of the sport. All right, so we'll change from Murray Walker and trying to go on off people that aren't offed yet to the Formula One testing, which saw Red Bull definitely stake and at least take a small crack, or put a nice little hammer a little bit on Mercedes' little armor there. But I I mean, I guess the question on that, I mean, we can get into number of times, but it really doesn't matter. We don't know what fuel loads were. We don't know anything about it. Max Verstappen's the best driver in this series outside of Lewis Hamilton. Everybody knows that. But is it, I mean, are we really looking at Red Bull as a clear, is this a 1A, 1 and 1A situation? Is this Max Verstappen pushing himself to a different level because he's actually got a teammate for the first time in his career, and Sergio Perez, who's also going balls out because he knows if he can make this work with Red Bull, he might be able to finish his career out pretty cool, like Mark Webber was, and he get some wins and then come to the States and make a ton of money running Indy cars. I mean, Sergio Perez has lots of angles going on here, but are we looking at Red Bull with their Honda connection and everything kind of really becoming like morphing into one, and the rules package kind of saying flat? Are they 1A? Are they going to be able to next week when we're talking about this race? Are they the favorite to win not only the pole at Bahrain, but win the race at the Bahrain Grand Prix to open this 2021 World Championship?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question to ask. And I mean, I feel like I'd be willing to bet on that, to be honest. Red Bull, they definitely have a shot to win. They were definitely the best team testing Bahrain last weekend. So coming into next weekend when we actually race for real in F1 to start the 2021 season, I think they definitely will have a chance to go out and lead first practice and take the pole, and then go out and win the race. I think Max Verstappen definitely has a chance there. I think after last couple of years of him being the lead guy and not quite having it, like in some races where they would definitely have the results, and then a lot of other races where they had issues with reliability or bad luck. I think maybe this is finally the year where they're actually a threat to Mercedes, and Mercedes kind of struggled this past weekend as well with their new W12 car, but I mean, they're still kind of, top dog. I mean, they definitely probably have something else in the cards there, and they'll shake it out next weekend. But it's definitely like a 1A, 1B thing, like you said. I mean, I don't know, can't say like how many laps each driver would lead or whatever, or who's going to have the fastest lap. But I definitely feel like at least to open the season, the first couple of races, Red Bull should be pretty strong, and they'll definitely be a lot more of a nuisance in Lewis Hamilton and even Valtteri Bottas than they had in previous years. I think with having a good teammate like Sergio Perez, I mean, he's going to have the opportunity to be in a good car finally for really the first time in his career. And I think he'll benefit from that too. And I don't know if he'll have like the same type of finishes that Max Verstappen should have, but he'll definitely be up there in kind of that top 5 range potentially. So a lot to expect for Red Bull, and definitely think that they'll be the ones to really challenge Mercedes this season in Formula One.
Yeah, I'll go the other way. I said it on the Grid Talk podcast. I just don't buy that Mercedes. I don't think it was sandbagging. I mean, Lewis was struggling with traction, and he spun out a lot. Bottas was able to get top of the charts in one of the sessions. I just don't buy that they're going to lose 2/10 or 3/10 that easily. And then it's Lewis Hamilton. You can hate him. It's fine. I'm glad that people hate him. It makes me happy that I'm a fan of his. I made the right choice finally with a Formula One driver, and he's won more races than anybody, and he's going to continue to win races, and he's going to win another world championship, and it's going to make more people mad, which makes me happy, because those people can go suck a dick, or put their thing in a vacuum, or shove something up their ass and do whatever. I think, fuck you. Like, the reality is he's one of the greatest ever. You can say it's the best car and all this stuff. Well, you know what? Michael Schumacher had the best car for 5 years in a row. What the hell did he do? He won 5 world championships with Ferrari. He had the best car in 1995 and he won the world championship. That's 6 of his 7 world championships. This first world championship, he missed like 4. He did the Kyle Busch because they suspended him or they just excluded him from races, and he still won all these races, and he won that world championship. It also helps that Ayrton Senna was killed in the 3rd race this season and probably would have won that race. But 7 world championships. If we're going to get into the whole that's best car, it's not the best car gimmick. It's that's convenient. The Jensen Button had the best car for a good part of the season, won a bunch of races. They didn't have the best car second half of the year because they had no more development because they ran out of money. He still won the world championship. People don't give shit to Jensen Button, you know why? Because he's white. They give shit to Lewis Hamilton because he's black and he has tats and he has a personality, and they don't like the personality because he's black. The same way as people don't like Bubba Wallace's personality because he's black. Difference is Lewis Hamilton's won nearly 100 races and 100 poles and all these things. Bubba Wallace hasn't won a major race since 2018, when he won at Bristol in a late model. So, and he hasn't won a big 3 NASCAR race since 2017 in a truck. And then one of his best friends promptly went and pranked him on his podcast. So it tells you where Bubba's career is in that sense. People move the goalposts on him no matter what. And I'm sorry, I'm using it as a tangent, but it's a thing where Mercedes isn't going away. Bahrain is a track where they've always been able to do well since the turbo hybrid era. The track conditions were a joke at times during that test. Reliability wise, McLaren proved the engine is the ice is good. And they're going to be a factor for sure. And we'll get into that here, but here in a moment, but engine's good. Car isn't stable on the back end, but I think given some of the changes they can make between now and the race, a little over a week from now, they can be in a position where they'll definitely be in the conversation. Maybe Max goes out there and does what he did at Abu Dhabi. Maybe. But I also think that Sergio Perez, with all the good vibes he has from winning at Bahrain a few months ago, is going to be a factor. Red Bull was only having 1 car up there. So the notion of having 2 cars up there and being able to deviate strategies is also going to make Mercedes have to push and put them in a position where they have to come correct, because Bottas has to show up, whichever version of Bottas that we're at this point in life. Lewis has to show up because he wants to win this world championship and make himself the greatest ever. You're going to have to earn it here. We don't know how many races we're going to have in the Formula One World Championship. They've been able to get through and they were able to finish World Championship last year. They've had to already make some changes to the calendar. We look at IndyCar and we look at NHRA, which we're going to get into a little bit with their schedule. They've already had to make some changes. IndyCar had to make changes. So I think Formula One isn't going to have a 23 race calendar as it currently constituted. So we will see how that works out. How many races that you get to run. So you have to go in every races, though it's going to count. Well, it does anyway, but you need to make every race count. So Lewis doesn't do things half-assed. He's going to show up. Mercedes is going to show up here next week at Bahrain. We'll get into that for sure in more of a preview of the season itself on the GSP in episode 53. We'll see if we may have a guest or not, but we'll definitely focus on Formula One for sure. And what we're going to talk about here shortly in regards to Sebring and other racing series. I think the next part is midfield. McLaren is like right in the, I think they're right in between. They're trying to get back to where they always used to be for many decades in the front line. And they have a driver combination, I think, makes them a frontline organization for the first time in a long time. The Mercedes power unit definitely puts them back a step above where they were, and they were able to do a lot of work with the Renault. And so, but they're on the top of the midfield. Of course, you have Ferrari, whatever they're going to be. You have Alpine, aka Renault, aka however many different iterations they've been. You have AlphaTauri, who definitely had a great test for 3 days for both drivers, especially their rookie, who Yuki Tsunoda is going to win by default because the two drivers he's racing against is Putin Haas, F1. So there's no way that Putin Haas F1 is going to have any chance of doing anything because they suck. And one driver in particular sucks at life, and the team sucks. I mean, there's just a whole level of suck. It's level similar to Haas CNC Racing prior to Tony Stewart buying majority ownership. That's how bad they are. And you add the Putin element to it. So it's just perfect. Typical Gene Haas business decision there outside of making them damn CNC machines. And then you also have Aston Martin, Racing Point, Tracing Point, Stroll, F1, whatever you want to call them. They had a questionable 3 days of testing for sure. But I guess, Josh, the point that we'll get into it more next week, but I mean, this midfield, that was where the battle was last year. It's been that way kind of for a few years, but I think we might be seeing a little bit of a shift in regards to maybe some teams may be moving up, some teams may be moving back. You know, I think that's where we have to look at here. And Bahrain is a track that, because of all the DRS zones and stuff like that, you're able to make some things happen. What are you looking at? I mean, we'll get into it more, but what did you see from testing that caught your eye, and kind of thoughts on what you're thinking, at least initially, before we really get into it next week?
Well, just looking at day 3 testing and kind of looking at the short run, I guess, like short pace speed that these teams had. And obviously Red Bull was leaders on day 3, and then Mercedes is like a half second back. And I'm looking at an article from Formula1.com for reference, but McLaren was like right behind Mercedes on day 3. So I think that tells you a lot about the progress that they've made in the last couple of years and going into this season. So McLaren should be like I would put them probably above midfield in that lowest of the top tier teams. So, if you were to rank them 1 to 3, it'd be Mercedes and then Red Bull and then McLaren. So I think McLaren definitely have a opportunity to move up into that. And then I think what's maybe surprising is Aston Martin being like kind of that top of the midfield team right there. They were like right behind McLaren, and then Alpine was aka Renault was right behind them. So I think those two teams probably be the best of the midfield. And actually, I mean, you can also add in AlphaTauri right there. Yuki Tsunoda is a really impressive rookie. Has been impressive so far in F2, being a junior development driver for Red Bull in their program. So I think he'll quickly make his way up into Red Bull eventually. But for now, being on AlphaTauri, he'll be really fast and have a lot of opportunities to finish and get points. But I think they'll be up there too. And then I think after that, Alfa Romeo and then Ferrari and Haas all kind of being in the same group. Ferrari and Haas, at least on pace, I think you'll probably see similar pace. I feel like, and that shouldn't be surprising. Haas does get Ferrari engines, and Ferrari is still kind of in that rebuilding mode. Although they were better the last testing day, they did finish, or they had Carlos Sainz post the third fastest time there. So there was a little bit of improvement for Ferrari, but I think they'll be better than what they were last season, but not quite up to the level that we would normally expect from them, where they were the second best team to Mercedes. So I think they'll definitely still kind of be in that midfield now, like we said, but maybe some races they'll be a surprise and actually be competitive, and there's going to be other races where they're not as competitive. And then obviously Haas, they'll probably be in the back or whatever, and then just Williams going to be probably bringing up the caboose for the field, not really that fast compared to even Haas. So I think midfield battle should be interesting with AlphaTauri and Alpine and Aston Martin there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the McLaren moving up. They're in between right now. There'll be races they'll probably be midfield looking, but there'll be other races where they're able to compete with the top two with that engine, and also Daniel Ricciardo being there. Definitely a top 5 driver, arguably a top 3 driver in this sport. If we were going to go and really get into it, it's Lewis, it's Max, and I think Daniel Ricciardo is the third best driver in this series. It's not Charles Leclerc, it's not some of these other guys. It's Ricciardo, because he's done it for a long time. He's been able to take cars that are not very good and do some work with them. And you put him there with a McLaren team that's on the upswing, with Lando Norris, who is a hard charger, a guy I think that is on the rise as well. Dangerous combination, especially going into 2022 with the new regulations as well. And I think it's just a learning year for all parties there, with a lot of the new things that are going on. In the midfield battle proper, AlphaTauri, I think, is going to really take a step forward here in 2021 because of Yuki Tsunoda being that hungry. He has a lot of Takuma Sato in him, in that aggression and that speed, but he has the ability. He's unlike Takuma Sato during basically his entire Formula One career and a lot of his IndyCar career until recently. Tsunoda has the race craft and the patience where he's going to be able to get you that finish. He's not going to go over that edge. And for AlphaTauri itself, they're looking at points. They're trying to look to move up that ladder. And you have Pierre Gasly, who's just rolling with house money. He's going to Alpine for sure. If it isn't Alpine, I kind of feel like, Ferrari already has 2 cars. Mercedes might be in play for him. He's one of the options. I think George Russell's going to be there, but Pierre Gasly's just rolling with house money right now. He's not going back to Red Bull proper. Tsunoda is the most likely person to go up there if they don't keep Perez, but Perez isn't going to get dropped this year. They'll drop him after they'll end his 1-year contract. They'll bring up Tsunoda. And Tsunoda is going to have to accept being the number 2 at that point. I don't think they want to bury him that way, but now once Red Bull takes over the Honda program, it won't really matter at that point. But and then you also have Jehan Daruvala, the Indian driver. He hopefully has a good year in F2 and you can go and have an Indian driver that can actually drive in Formula One. That'd be cool. But I think that'll be a whole new deal there at AlphaTauri because of what they do this year. Alpine will be interesting because of Fred. What is he going to bring? What is he going to do? He's one of the greatest that we've seen in the past 15 years. And he's lived off those 2 world championships for all those years and has had a lot of sketchy stuff ever since at times. And then at other times, he's shown why he's one of the greatest drivers ever. He's one of the greatest Spanish drivers ever. I mean, it's basically him and Carlos Sainz Senior, and that's it. Like in regards to car racing, motorcycle racing, different story. But the Aston Martin team, I have no idea what they're going to do. For you got Sebastian Vettel, who flamed out of Ferrari to the point where he was not even a factor and looked like he had no business being out there at times. And then other times you don't even know if he cared. He had like, I don't know how many different Ferrari drivers he had. He had Alan Prost stuff going on. He had Mansell. I don't know what he's going to bring. And Stroll. He's a tool. He's the Noah Gragson of Formula One. Or maybe that's Marzipan, but neither of them are appealing. That team is going to have decent looking cars, but they're probably not going to be up there, which is a disappointment when you consider where they were, their basically framework of what they had last year at this time, how little they got out of it. It's going to be a problem unless they are planning on 22, which is what Putin Haas F1 is doing. But that's not going to matter because they're not going to come with a car unless they come up with some trick within the rule book, a la, whatever, what's his name? Braun F1 and Red Bull and Williams when they had that blown diffuser, double diffuser deal in 2009. Unless there's some sort of loophole, there's no way that Haas is going to be a factor. There's not enough Putin money in there to make them a factor. And you add the fact that Marzipan is probably going to get his ass kicked at some point this year. I don't know what their direction is. Pietro Fittipaldi, credit to him, angling the third driver role and then being able to drive. I mean, he's driving for quite a quality combination. He's driving for Gene Haas, Marzipan's dad, and Rick Ware, and Dale Coyne. If you want to talk about 4 interesting characters, and he's banging out Chad Little's daughter. So that I mean, we need to do some intel on that deal. We need to probably have some time on one of these episodes to talk about Pietro Fittipaldi's career arc for sure. But he's going to be on deck when Nikita Marzipan gets his ass beat and gets like put into like a whatever like this. Somebody's going to kick the living crap out of him because he does not know how to drive a race car properly. He is like Gagson. He is Riley Herbst. He's Joe Graff Jr. Insert terrible race car driver. Like Natalie Decker. Like whatever. Like just absolute tool or terrible personality. Like I don't know. Like oh my God, we don't even mention him on the other show. That's why I had to come up with Putin Haas because that's the only way you can talk about him. But oh fuck. I mean, yeah, Williams I think is going to take a step forward. Doritos put some money into those cars. Russell wants to prove himself before he gets to move out the door. I don't think Alfa Romeo is going to do much anything. I think Haas F1 at the end of the day, and Putin Haas is going to be the worst team this year. I think Williams will at least get above 10th, may even get to 8th. I think Aston Martin is going to take a huge drop, and we'll go from there. In regards to Formula One, we have we have to talk about, well, that's something. A mountain bike crash for Shane Van Gisbergen, won the 2 races at Bathurst. And read about Sean Bradley paralyzed because somebody ran over him while he was riding a bike, which was pretty brutal to read. The former Philadelphia 76er and Dallas Mavericks center, 7'6" player out of BYU and Latter-day Saint himself, just like my favorite player, Steve Young. So thoughts and prayers to Sean Bradley and his family this tough time, and see about Shane Van Gisbergen because they'll be running at Sandown this weekend for the Supercars. Let's go back here. We'll talk about the Gatornationals. Yeah, so Josh Hart won in Top Fuel. Josh, you said first driver to win in his first start in 20 years. Oh yeah, it's Darrell Russell. It was Darrell Russell in 2001 at the Winter Nationals for Joe Amato's team, the late Darrell Russell. And Sean Langdon beat Sean Langdon there, so former world champion Sean Langdon. And you had Pro Stock, which was Greg Anderson, 60th win. Or 95th win, or he's turned 60. It was his 95th win. So credit to that. He's a tool. Wife's got great rack. Matt Smith, speaking of a wife with a great rack, wins another Pro Stock motorcycle race because that's what he seems to do these days. J.R. Todd, funny cars. I don't know. Did you take in anything in regards to the NHRA? Because unfortunately, I guess we're guilty of it this past weekend. We were out the door in regards to some of these races here, but I mean, it's NHRA, it's early in the season. You have J.R. Todd beat Robert Height. Of course, Robert Height returning, the John Force Racing team returned for the first time since 2019. Yeah, Cruz Pendragon actually made the semifinals along with Bob Tasca. So interesting turnaround. Of course, defending champion in the funny car category, Jack Beckman, is not racing this year. They no sponsorship. You have, Tommy Johnson Jr., of course, isn't there anymore either. So it's kind of tightened up the field a bit in regards to who's there. You got Wilkerson, Bobby. Oh, so now Bob Bodie quit. So Bobby Bodie. There you go. Ron Capps is literally the only DSR funny car. And then there's like 4 top fuel cars or 3 top fuel cars for DSR between Leah Pruitt, aka Smoke Side Piece, Van Tron Brown, our Jersey boy, who's kind of deviating into his own deal, and then Tony Schumacher, who will be running full time this year, first time in a few years. So that'll be they had a full field, which is something considering losing a couple of big name drivers there. Blake Alexander, he's driving the Jim Head car. Chad Green. What did you take in, Josh, in regards to the Gatornationals? And Josh Hart doing something that hadn't been done in 20 years. Darrell Russell winning his to winning your top field debut.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was kind of out to lunch like you were this weekend. so I didn't really catch too much of it. But you have to say Josh Hart is pretty impressive. First start 20 years, or to win in the first start in the series in 20 years, and beating Sean Langdon there final round. And not only is he a Florida guy, but he's also an Ocala guy, which is about 45 minutes away from Gainesville. And it's a Don Garlitz country in terms of drag racing in NHRA, and so that's kind of popular win from that angle, I guess, or at least an interesting win. But didn't really catch too much of it overall. But still, it was impressive, I guess. And Tony Stewart's girlfriend lost in eliminator round 2, I guess, to Sean Langdon there. So unfortunate for her. Maybe could have had a little bit better luck there or something, and maybe she could have been in the finals eventually, but we didn't get to see that. So maybe next year, maybe next time for Leah Pruitt there, but not really too much to take away. But it was definitely a good win there for Josh Hart.
Yeah, that's to do something that, in terms of Top Fuel, I mean, the way NHRA is these days, I mean, even though you have, of course, you think about Marcus Lemonis trying to sponsor anybody. I mean, this weekend at the Truck Series race, anybody that needs sponsors and have Overtons on their truck probably. It tells you how good of a promoter he is. He wants the same in the NHRA Camping World Series, which is those pro categories. He wants to do the same thing. So credit to Marcus Lemonis for being a great spokesperson and great person in regards to motorsport. On that angle, yeah, Pruitt didn't have as much fortune in regards to being able to go and make it in, losing to Langdon, but then Langdon ends up going and beating Antron Brown, and but he then ended up losing to Josh Hart. So it's something. Funny car with J.R. Todd, beating Robert Height, and before that, Cruz Pendragon. Then in pro stock, you have Greg Anderson beating Troy Coughlin Jr., the former Pro Mod driver. His dad, of course, ran in pro stock. And now he's in this series. He's driving his uncle, Jed Coughlin's car, and he beat Mason McGahey, who's the son of Chris. Maggot sympathizers, both of them, but Troy Coughlin Jr. got that win. Derek Kramer ends up losing to Anderson on he beat him. Anderson beat him handling there. Other than that, you got Kyle, so Kenny Koretsky's kid there, Fernando Quadra, Alex Laughlin, Matt Hartford. So, pro stock. I'm trying to see what the heck happened to what's her name, that other sympathizing whore. Fernando Quadra treed Fernando Quadra Jr. treed Eric Enders, which that's something. That is something. I mean, she's been treed plenty of times in other ways, but to go and she's known as a great start line driver, and to go and lose on the tree is something there. But I'm sure she'll get that corrected for whenever the heck the next time they race. You've got Scotty Polachek, Garrett Stouffer, of course, Angie Smith lost because Steve Johnson, a legend, Angel Sampay, Ryan Ayler, Bostic, Matt Smith, beats Jimmy Onderdahl. Trying to see who. Ayler beat Scotty Polachek, and Matt Smith beat Steve Johnson in the semifinals. So, yeah, so that's the NHRA there. We won't have a race probably as it stands right now. We're not going to have a race for a month. The the next guaranteed race is the Denso Sparkplugs Four Wide Nationals at Las Vegas, which will be in a month's time, basically. So it'll be a little bit of a break there in regards to the NHRA series, the Pro Series at least. Let's see there. We will get into the 12 hours of Sebring now. In terms of the prototype category, it's a little smaller field compared to the Rolex, with some of the European cars not showing up here, and that's fine, and you get that. You have Supercars at Sandown, which kind of, they could combine the 12 hours of Sebring in regards to the Roundup, and you have, because that's it kind of works into it. So 12 hours Sebring, you have Sandown for the Supercars, along with the other things we'll talk about in the Roundup as well. My thing, I brought up what we were talking about offline, Josh, is the Jimmy Johnson car, the 48, and Simon Pagenaud, Kamui Kobayashi. Those two guys, of course, have won major sports car races in their time, whether it's Lamar or whatever, Sebring, Daytona, whatever. Jimmy, of course, transitioning out of Cup to being a road racer full time. His car, of course, and his team won a couple weeks ago at Las Vegas. But that notwithstanding, of course, they finished second in the Rolex 24. And that was a really good run. And my thing is, when you consider the kind of talent and depth there is, it's a smaller field, but quality field. Are they a factor here? Can they go out there and win the 12 hours of Sebring on Saturday night? Or is it just a pipe dream, and they're probably, because they don't have as much time and they need Jimmy to, I mean, I guess he's going to do his minimum drive time, whatever. He's probably going to run a couple hours, but is it more of a pipe dream, or is it a realistic possibility that the 48 car could be on the top step of the podium come Saturday night at Sebring?
I'm not sure. I mean, in the right situation, they definitely could be on the top podium there, on the top there. But it's hard to say. Jimmy doesn't have as much experience as they do, and as Camille Kobayashi and Simon Pagenaud there. But it's definitely possible. I mean, Jimmy's a hardworking guy. He'll definitely be willing to put in as much time as he needs to, and as he's probably has been trying to prepare for this race. But I feel like they will be carrying the weight for him, kind of like at the Rolex 24 in a way, but they won't have Mike Rockenfeller there as well. But still, I could still see them potentially finishing somewhere on the podium. I don't know about first, but maybe second or third on the podium. But I think you also have to focus on Chip Ganassi in the 0-1 car with Van der Zandt, Magnussen, and Scott Dixon. They were having a chance there at the end of the Rolex 24 with against Ricky Taylor and Felipe Albuquerque and Alexander Rossi, but they ended up having a tire failure with like 10 minutes to go, like we talked about on past podcasts. But I think there'll be a factor. I think Magnussen probably has a lot of pressure to go out and perform in this race. Ricky Taylor and Wayne Taylor Racing, they're definitely going to be, I mean, I'm not going to say a favorite, but they'll definitely be a heavyweight in this race. Felipe Nasr, Mike Conway, Pipo Derani, and Willing Engineering car, they'll be a factor as well. I mean, you can really say like almost all of the DPi cars would be a factor. based on what we saw in the Rolex 24. I feel like even though it is a little bit of a smaller field, I feel like it's going to be similar in terms of the level of competition that we saw from that race. So definitely think that it's going to be a kind of similar race to what we saw at the Rolex 24. So I think it should be very exciting to see how the strategies are going to play out. Who's going to be fighting who for the lead? I feel like probably at the end, like if you were to pick like a potential podium, I'd probably go with the 01, the 10, and then probably the 48 with Ally and Cadillac. But we'll see what happens. We haven't really seen a whole bunch from Mazda, and same kind of with Meyer Shank, but they could definitely be a factor as well. So I feel like it's definitely going to be, I wouldn't say like unpredictable like the Rolex 24, but it's definitely going to be something very similar to what we saw there.
Yeah, I think we don't really know. I think, of course, a lot of practice and qualifying, because unlike NASCAR, every other motorsport series actually knows how to run a proper race. So, maybe Mazda shows up. They only have one car compared to where they've been the last few years. The Acura program has not been able to show up and be as competitive at the longer races when they were with Penske, but now that they are with Wayne Taylor's team, of course, they were up there. Ends up winning the race at the Rolex. And then you have Meyer Shank, of course, was getting their first race with that program going in the prototype program for the first time in a few years. Maybe they are able to refine some things and put themselves in a position to compete. And then the Cadillacs have been able to do very well in these enduros in general. The Ganassi car, I think, as Josh said, is going to be a factor for sure when you have Renger van der Zande and Kevin Magnussen and Dixon. I mean, that's for a 3-driver lineup. That's the pound for pound up there in regards to the kind of talent, ability, potential, and just, of course, when Scott Dixon is one of the greatest drivers ever been, and one of the best drivers in the last 20 years in motorsports. So something to see. Ganassi having more time to refine that car. What are they going to be able to do there? And you can't count out the 31 car with Pippo effing Durrani, and that whole group. So we'll definitely see that. It's going to be a race all the way to the end, I would think. There's no way that deal is going to be boring, for sure. Outside of that, I mean, we have the GTD, because the GT Le Mans category is not really going to do anything there. They're going to have, that's Corvette. Even with the new paint schemes, they're still going to win. So there's not much to talk about there. When you think about, you go and think about the LMP3 category, I figure that's not going to be much of anything in terms of the they're not even showing that here as upcoming or live now. Maybe it's in live now. Oh yeah, I am. So okay. So I'm just trying to bring up field there. Championship races. And I mean, I think the racetrack, based on how rough it always is, at Sebring is going to mean more attrition in regards to the racing and the ability. There'll be more cautions there, even though there are a lot of cautions in the Rolex compared to the year before. I mean, there's going to be It's going to be a tough race for sure. LMP2 and LMP3 will be tight, but you have to look at the Euro Motorsport number 18, the 74 Riley Motorsports LMP3. Those cars at one at Daytona are definitely the favorite to go and repeat going into the 12 hours of Sebring as it stands. And we'll go over that next week here on the GSP. Next thing we'll talk about will be the Roundup, GSP Roundup. Supercars will be racing at Sandown, former enduro track for the Supercars Championship. Used to hold the Sandown 500, which, depending on where it was, would either land before or after the Bathurst 1000. They'll be running there now because of the COVID protocols. And Shea Vegas, we're going to start a season with a couple of wins at Bathurst. Was injured in a mountain biking accident, but it sounds like he's going to give it a shot to try to go and race at the Sandown race, and they'll have 3 races there. He says he's going to drive. Yesterday it said that he was able to drive, or he's going to try to drive, and whether that comes off or not, I guess we'll find out, and it'll be something that we'll get into in more detail. It says race 2 and race 3. It's like, how the heck do you have race 2 and race 3 when you have only 2 races there? But whatever. Tony D'Albert, how the heck? He's confirmed a return from the, oh, okay. So he's gonna be the co-driver. As it stands, Scott McLaughlin meant to be returning, appear with Will Davis, and our changes in regard to that thing. I mean, it's feasible to over Davis and Anton to get fine, and Alex Davison's fine. Will, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Thinking about some of the co-driver spots for the Bathurst for all the enduros. So that'll be something that we'll look at too later on. Josh, you said you saw something in regards to, I wanted to throw to you on that. You said something about Corvette going back to Le Mans. Is that in a prototype category, as a prototype deal, or is you're just talking about them in GT? Because after this year, they won't have a GT Le Mans program.
Yeah, I was reading that earlier in, let's see, WEC. Yeah, Corvette was reported on Racer, and Corvette going back to Le Mans. They didn't say what class, but I mean, I guess it's under GTE, so it's, they're not going like some other class or whatever, but they hadn't been in Le Mans the past couple of years, I guess.
Yeah.
Now they're returning, and I mean, we're gonna basically see the Corvette racing team there with their 2 cars, and they're going to debut the C8R on the European level, and they'll have Antonio Garcia, Jordan Taylor, Nicky Katzberg, and then the other car is going to have Tommy Milner, Nicky Tandy, and Alexander Sims, and 63 and number 64 Corvettes. So I thought that was a little interesting there, because they hadn't been there in the last couple of years. Felt like kind of the battle between them and Ford in the Ford GT. I felt like that was maybe a little bit interesting with American cars getting into the GT category of Le Mans when they kind of competed off and on there. So I just wanted to bring that one up. I thought it was interesting, and hopefully they can match up well against some of the European teams in that category. And I'm not sure if they're going to get a win or not, but it would definitely be interesting, like if they were able to place well and potentially get like a podium there at Le Mans.
Yeah, and their last run with the GTE category, I think it'll be that's what they want to do. Go back to Le Mans, get one last run there after 20 years of running there, more or less, the better part of 20 years. Get one last win. Of course, Aston Martin and Ferrari are going to have something to say about that in regards to GTE Pro. Um, in The iRacing Challenge is going to start again for the Indy cars, and they're going to be running at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve tomorrow night in the IndyCar Challenge. And there seems to be, it isn't the full field of IndyCar drivers or some uh, outsiders, some, I think, sim veteran types, and three
Yeah.
Rick Ware racing cars, which is just beautiful. um,
Well, it's just the paint job. They all going to drive
yeah.
the same car in iRacing.
Yeah. So, I mean, whatever. It's still Rick Ware racing cars. So, I mean, Davis, whatever, James Davison will probably be whinging like Will Power. Um, Grosjean will probably run over somebody, and I forget. I think the 52 was Pietro, so Pietro probably will stand out there. Um, but I don't know. Did you get to look at the? I was just looking at it myself. I was just looking at the grid for tomorrow night's race. I think it's going to be a Penske benefit between uh, Scott McLaughlin, who's now plying his trade here in the United States, along with Will Power. I think they're going to be the cars to beat tomorrow night in regards to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I'm trying to think of any of the other guys that were in that list. Just, I might as well bring it up here and go and look at it. I was trying to look for because of the IMSA website. I was trying to look at the freaking entry list for the 12 hours of Sebring, but their website sucks so bad that can't barely find anything on there.
Yeah. I've got the article here. I mean, I don't know about the full entry list, but Newgarden's going to be there. RHR, Simon, Will Power, Taku Sato, Felix Rosenquist, Graham Rahal, Ed Carpenter, Pato Award, Alex Pillow, Connor Daly. That's going to be an entertaining stream for sure. We've seen his streams in the past. That was entertaining. Scott McLaughlin will be in it. Romain Grosjean. And then they're also going to feature a driver from the Road to Indy. So I think that'll be interesting. They'll have a chance to actually compete virtually against the real life IndyCar drivers. So get a taste of what the next level should be. I don't know who that driver is. The article doesn't say, but
Braden Eves.
Yeah. So that should be good for him. I don't know who that is actually, but having an opportunity to compete against real life IndyCar drivers on the sim should be an interesting experience. And they're going to go to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which has always been an interesting track, at least in the NASCAR races there. They've had some good kart races there. Formula One, maybe not as much, but definitely a very, very challenging track. We'll see how the feedback goes internally from the drivers. I know last year Scott Dixon had some criticisms about the iRacing physics model on their forums, I think, or somewhere. I forgot where he criticized it, and I think iRacing wasn't happy about it, and they were threatening to prohibit criticism. From what I was able to hear, they kind of did similar thing with the NASCAR series, and a lot of drivers were unhappy about how the physics model behaved for the Cup car at Homestead. There's a lot of criticisms internally with iRacing, but I'm just there to have fun and stream and stuff like that. But with that, we'll see how that race goes. It should be entertaining. We'll see some shenanigans and stuff come about. We'll see how seriously the drivers take it. I know in some of the sim racing deals that they did last year in broadcast, not all the drivers took it seriously, but I do feel like the IndyCar ones were definitely one of the more like professional, I guess, and wasn't quite as much of a circus, but we still had some shenanigans, especially with the Indianapolis simulation that they did last year, how that race ended with I forgot who wrecked, but the
Santino
leaders, yeah,
Ferrucci
Santino wrecked them. Yeah,
went and wrecked Oliver Askew. So
yeah, yeah. So should be interesting. And then after that, they'll go to Homestead. So should be on the real oval, but like we talked about before. But and then they're gonna have the fan voted track leading into the season opener at Barber. So we'll see which one's that. I mean, I would go for Talladega or something insane, or maybe the Coca Cola or the iRacing Super Speedway. And we can see 240 miles an hour IndyCar racing, and they can just like as soon as they spin out, they'll pirouette into the air and break the game.
yeah,
Because if you fly up into the air, there's like a certain point where basically like the game just like resets you back to the pits.
yeah.
So that should be funny. So we'll see what happens. They'll have a fan vote for that. So not sure which tracks they're going to pick out, but definitely. Well, you can go on IndyCar's social media sites and see which track they picked out. So should be interesting.
Yeah, hopefully they pick Bathurst or something. That'd be cool. It's so
Yeah.
tight and narrow, it'd be insane. Or some sort of track that's like really, really you would consider um, not likely to. I mean, Indy cars run like crazy street courses, so they could run a lot of different types of tracks. I mean, they're going to run Homestead, Miami, so that'll be cool. So you'll get your good road course. You'll have, which is a street course. Then you'll have oval, and then you could have a permanent road course as well. Um, That'll be on April 1st. That fan vote race. The Homestead Miami will be run next Thursday. And then, yeah, the fan vote race will be April 1st, which will be just 2.5 weeks before season over at opener at Baba. And you'll have, I mean, they're showing liveries of some of the cars. It doesn't sound like there's some of the big time drivers they haven't shown their livery. I mean, Sage Karam's driving the 98 car for his butt buddy Marco. Braden Eves, who's running, I think probably running Indy. If he isn't running Indy Lights, he's going to be running, the Indy Pro 2000. So he's an Indy Pro 2000 guy. It looks like he's like maybe 15 years old, whatever the hell. Doesn't look more older, probably older than 16 or 17. So he's a kid that's on the up and coming deal there, and that'll be cool to see him. Jimbo Kimball driving for AJ Foyt's team. No 14 car there. It's showing on this list or whatever spotter guide. Doesn't show a whole field. Maybe there are going to be more cars, but I guess we'll find out about that more tomorrow night. V8s will be running at Sandown. Full field there in regards to the Ford versus Holden battle that will go on here for the last time this year before the new Gen 3 formula comes in, and it'll be Ford versus Chevy, just like NASCAR. With that, we'll go into the previews of all three races at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Who knows? Maybe it might be the last time that Atlanta Motor Speedway is the way it is with the dog leg. Maybe they're going to actually go and put it back to the way it used to be at Atlanta, with the long oval with the huge turns, and we'll set new track records and the whole bit, and it'll be a one groove racetrack. But we'll find that out in more detail maybe later on this year. In terms of the truck series, you got FR8 auction. The FR8 auctions 200 at Atlanta, which will be Saturday afternoon. And then they'll have the Xfinity race after that. There's 40 trucks. Ross Chastain will be starting tailback. Spencer Davis, who makes the field. You have Brian Ellis, can't drive. Brett Holmes driving number 32. Corey Roper, Bill Lester at age 60, making a return to the Truck Series. Kraus, Ingram, they're back. Dawson Cram, former guest on this show, next to noted swallower Haley Deegan. Chase Purdy, the rookie. Looking at some of these other people. Kyle Busch will be starting on the front row, so that's convenient. With his teammate John R. Nemechek, Crafton, Friesen, Rhodes, Hill, Austin Hill, Zane Smith, Sheldon Creed, Todd Gill, and Brett Moffitt. So the easier question is, figure I've gotten to a point when it comes to Xfinity and trucks that I figure Kyle Busch is going to win, even though he didn't win the last race. I'm just going to assume he's going to win. So under the assumption that he is going to win, then it's one thing. But if it wasn't Kyle Busch, who do you pick, Josh? And who will you look at as a dark horse pick to go in somewhere or another beat Kyle Busch in a truck at Atlanta?
Well, I think for me, I'm going to go with John Hunter Nemechek again, go for the back-to-back repeat from last week and win, or the last Truck Series race, and go and win here at Atlanta. Last year in this race, Kyle Busch did not, I think he led a lot of the race, but then ended up having like a mechanical failure or a tire failure or something, and ended up not winning at all that entire weekend. So I could see something similar happen. I'm not really too high on Kyle Busch winning, actually, because of that history. And the last race didn't end up winning that one either. And John Hunter Nemechek won instead. So I could see Hunter Nemechek going out and repeating in this race. And I think maybe a wild card, somebody like Austin Hill. I feel like he probably could have been better at this race last year. And I feel like maybe this time around they'll actually get a good finish here. So we'll see. And Sheldon Creed probably will be another factor in this race, but definitely I think John Henry Nemechek probably the guy to watch overall besides Kyle Busch.
I think you took license on wild card there by picking Austin Hill when you consider he had a chance to win this race last year. And I think it was a caution or a couple of cautions late that probably cost him. But all allowed, it's kind of like the talking in circles fantasy game too. Who's a dark horse or who isn't a dark horse? For me, if it isn't Kyle Busch, I think it's Sheldon Creed. He's been able to win on any type of racetrack, really. So I think Sheldon Creed goes and opens up his 2021 win column here at Atlanta if it isn't Kyle Busch. In regards to a dark horse, since you took license with Austin Hill, I'm going to take license with Grant Enfinger because he's not running a full season. He's starting 19th. He doesn't have a great pit position. He's a driver that he knows how to run these rougher racetracks. This track probably is going to suit him or has suited him over time. I think he is a factor, somebody that will be able to make a drive up and possibly go out there and win, even though he's not running a full season in the Truck Series. Go to the Xfinity race, the Echo Park 250 at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Our team takes advantage. Cindric will be on pole with Jeb Burt and AJ Allmendinger, Brandon Brown, Harrison Burton. Top 5, Allgaier, Herbst, Moffitt, Snyder, Clemens. Your top 10, Santucci, starting 12th. That's something. Truex is in this race. He'll be in the 54. Josh Berry, 22nd. some other guys. There's only so they have 43 cars for 40 spots. Ronnie Bassett Jr., Jordan Anderson, Andy Lally, they'll qualify. Even though there's no qualifying, Brian Sieg is pretty far down there. A couple other guys. Gagson starting 30th. I guess I'm going to preface it this way. If it isn't Martin Truex Jr., who I don't even remember the last time you ran an Xfinity race, but if it isn't Martin Truex Jr. in the 54 or Austin Cindric, who do you look at as a favorite and a dark horse pick? And I think I just thought about it, and I think I might have parked it for you there in terms of the favorite, since there's somebody that's right on top that really stands out to me based on recent history there.
Yeah, I think you're probably talking about AJ Allmendinger. He won this race last year, and then this year winning at Las Vegas, and it's been somewhat pretty good so far this year in the Xfinity Series. And I think he has definitely got a great chance to win this race come on Saturday. So I think that would be my pick. I think wild card, it's a little tough, but there's a lot of guys there. But could say somebody like Brandon Brown, but he's starting to get into that category where he isn't really a wild card anymore. So I'm going to go with Jeremy Clements. We'll see what he can do in this race. Based on the qualifying algorithm and all that stuff, and he's starting 10th. Should be a solid top 10, maybe a top 15. So look out for Jeremy Clements to try to get a decent finish there with a single car team. Not really any real sponsorships, so we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Brown, I think, still kind of lands there, but I'll just take that. If you want to take Jeremy Clements, and I'll take Brandon Brown there as my wild card. Anybody's a single car mom and pop organization at this point. I think whether you're up there in points or not, I mean, how many races were in the season? I think this shoddier portion of the season might actually help the likes of the Brandon Brown or Jeremy Clements, some of those teams that are trying to make this back end of the playoff. Tommy Joe Martins is another one that might be able to benefit from that. Some of the smaller organizations like JD, they're just taking a step backwards or two since Ross Chastain left the organization. MDM, those kind of teams. But yeah, I'll take Brandon Brown on that sense. In regards to a favorite, if it isn't Truex or Gumby, I'm going to, and of course you picked AJ. I parked that one. I'm going to go with Daniel Hemric. It's his kind of racetrack, rough, abrasive. You have to be able to race on the long run, make it work over it's one of the longer races in the Xfinity series. It's his kind of race, and you got Gibbs equipment. At some point he's going to win a race. I don't know how the heck he hasn't won a race, but I forget who said it on Twitter or somebody, and I know, or maybe you said it. Like how he's not that aggressive, and fundamentally that's probably why he hasn't won yet, because he hasn't been willing to move somebody over, move somebody out of the way. In this spot, I think you need a win to. Not because there's going to be more than 12 winners in Xfinity. I think for him, if he wins one race, it could open up the floodgates, similar to what happened with Chase Briscoe last year. Whether that means he's going to have a sponsor and be able to move up the cup in a really good ride is a whole other discussion. But I think Emmerich the guy, if it isn't Truex or Gumby. Cup Series race, though, will be a little more difficult because of how deep the field theoretically is. Going into Atlanta Motor Speedway, Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 sees the 11 of Denny Hamlin start on pole with Truex in second, the Penske cars of Logano and Keselowski, then the Hendrick cars of Elliott and Larson, row 3, Harvick, who's an Atlanta expert, and Christopher Bell in row 4, Byron and Blaney. So that's a tough one for Aaron there in row 5. In regards to, oh look, Gumby's actually racing in this race. That's something I didn't know that. So Gumby's going to actually be starting tailback in the Pertec Ford number 33. You have some other people. I'm going to look at Tyler Reddick will be really buried. He'll probably be running the fence within like 10 laps. Briscoe, 24th. Got Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain are be one behind the other. So that'll be something. Yeah, I mean, this one is going to be a little bit more difficult to pick. There are guys that over time have been great at Atlanta, one in particular, but is it Harvick for you? Or if it isn't Harvick, who is it in terms of a favorite, Josh? And then I think the wild cards, it's a lot harder. I think the notion of anybody that's currently outside of the top 16 points, it probably plays in regards to who's a wild card here going into Sunday at Atlanta.
Well, you're right. It is a little tough to pick the Cup Series race. We got guys that have been good in the past at Atlanta, like Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, obviously been really good at Atlanta. The way he's been able to hug the yellow line and put his car right there on the paint as he goes in the corners. And seems like lately the bottom has really been the dominant lane compared to the top. So I think with this race, I mean, it's really hard, and I'm gonna go with Kyle Larson. I feel like with the way he's been able to drive this year, how he was at Homestead and Las Vegas. Those tracks are also pretty rough. Las Vegas not as much, but still kind of a rough track. So I'm gonna go with him winning this race. Feel like Harvick just isn't quite there this year, and also even though he did win this race, just feel like they're not quite on their A game quite yet. Brad Keselowski, he could be another factor, but just don't see it quite in him just yet. So I'm going to go with Larson. I think a wild card. I'm going to go with Bubba Wallace. Why not? I'll go with Bubba, and he got his best finish of the season last week. I feel like he can be pretty good at Atlanta. Last year, I felt like he had a good finish. Obviously, after the race was a little overheated, but I think it'll be a little bit different for him this year. Maybe they can go out and get their team's first top 10 or get a top 15 finish. So hopefully, Bubba Wallace can get a good result on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a good one. Former Coca-Cola driver. I'm trying to look at who's the sponsor is McDonald's, so that's something. I think Bubba is due to have a decent run, top 15, solid all day, and positioning is in his favor. Wheeler, who knows what he's going to do, but I think Atlanta's an opportunity for sure for Bubba to go and get that top 15 finish. I'm going to go and stay in that realm in terms of who's my favorite pick, and I'm taking this based on, the USAC skills. I picked Brad on talking in circles along with who I'm going to end up picking as my wild card. But in this case, I'm going to deviate. I'm going to pick Chris Bell for the win at Atlanta in the 20 car. And then the dark horse pick will be Tyler Reddick, who's starting pretty far back and needs another good run to kind of put himself back in the points race in the 2021 Cup Series season. With all that done, we will get into the last part of the show, which will have Josh kind of take over because it's sim racing time. We did some sim talk in regards to the IndyCars, but Josh is in a great sim racer himself, and we'll throw to you in regards to some of your exploits and what are things going on here, not only last week but going into this week.
Yeah, last week on iRacing was the infamous Week 13 series. The ARCA, I did a little stock cars last week, and it was the ARCA Tube Twister series, which is basically just ARCA racing on road courses, and just did the Daytona road course and the Charlotte Rovals there. Didn't really get too much of a good result there, but it's all for fun. And there's a opportunity to just go for broke and not really worry about anything. Obviously, don't be too aggressive or reckless, but don't have to worry about like crashing or taking incident points anywhere. So that's really I was able to do on week 13. But then also the E-Racer GG community events. E-Racer GG is basically a league that Landon Castle, Parker Kligerman started. They did Firecracker 400 last year and a couple of really big events where there's a lot of money on the line. And then they did event this year called the Car Anomaly 500, which was basically them paying out like 10,000, 15K, something like that to the winner. Kyle Busch was in that race, but they had a couple of community events last week. They just did some Cup, Xfinity, and truck mixed racing all on the Watkins Glen boot track, which was really hard. Did a lot of sliding around in the Cup car. Should have picked the truck or the Xfinity car. Would have been a lot better suited for the boot. The Cup car just had way too much power, way too much wheel spin. Was really loose coming out of the corner, so really just had to feather it coming out of the corner, and really just did not have a lot of pace there. I was actually the slowest of the Cup cars that were in that race. Parker Kligerman went and ran the truck. I forgot where he finished in that, but it was definitely probably the better decision. But had a lot of fun. I think what ended up happening me in that one was I missed a shift and went from, instead of going from third gear to fourth gear on the back straight of Watkins Glen, I went from third to second and then got ran over by the guy behind me. Obviously, he wasn't looking or wasn't expecting me to do that. And then I kind of got punted there and then got some wheel damage and had to take the tow truck. But, it's all good fun, not really anything serious, just whatever on a, Wednesday night, Thursday night, 30-minute timed race. And then we did Xfinity Series at Auto Club, which I'm not really that experienced on the Xfinity car at that track, so don't really have a lot of practice time. Raja Karuth, who's a sim racer personality and trying to make it up in the K&N series with the Max Siegel's team, I think, the Rev Racing team. I think I was racing against him, some other guys in the heat race. Had a chance there maybe to make it in, but got caught up in somebody else's mess on the second to last lap or next to last lap. So wasn't able to get into that one and make it into the main event where would have been racing against Parker Kligerman and some of the other really good racers in that league. But all in all, it's a lot of fun, but was able to, race against other guys. So now maybe try to improve there on that series. I think maybe this week we'll probably try to stream some IndyCar fixed oval racing and the open setup series, which is on the road course level, or the road course of racing. Also going to be racing at Auto Club. Fixed series is going to be like a 60 lap race. The open series is a 100 lap race. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for fuel strategy. was able to win one time on the IndyCar Fixed Oval Series at Auto Club back in like September. So maybe we'll get a win here at, sometime this week. We'll see. And then also on the NASCAR side, the 87 car at Daytona. We'll see how that goes. They changed the setup a few weeks ago, or a few seasons ago, and made it harder to drive for the 87 car. It was a little bit easier to drive, and then all of a sudden, the last couple runs on the 87 at Daytona, it's just gotten way too loose, and there's a lot of opportunity to spin out going to turn 1 and turn 3. So maybe next time we'll have better luck there. We'll see. But on the road side of things on iRacing, I was able to get into Class B. So moving on up in the road racing series license, and hopefully you can get a little bit more competitive on that end. And the IndyCar racing series on there is on the road license for the Open Series. So maybe have some opportunities to do IndyCar open setup racing with the road course. So maybe get Road America or Long Beach, all those great road courses that the IndyCar racing series runs in real life, and be able to do it on iRacing. So that's all I got for the sim stuff.
Yeah, I mean, going and running Auto Club, as you mentioned, moving up in the open wheel side, getting yourself in a position to compete in some of the bigger races, the bigger Indy 500 lobbies, and some of the other racing that you can get into. And then also with the 87 car, I find that to be pretty cool, because you're able, I think it's more of a driver's car, running that 87 car with no downforce, and the ass end, there's nothing on the ass end, and you're going to have to run high, large arcs going into the 1 and 3, keep a lot of speed, maybe running the fence a bit. I think that's pretty cool. Are you on bias flies just like they had in 87? Is it how that works, or is it a radial? How the hell does that work?
I mean, I think it's bias ply. Definitely drives a lot different than the current Cup car, obviously, but
Yeah,
I think it's bias ply. They didn't implement radial tires until like
1991
1991 or something like that. So
So
I figure it's bias ply for the 87 cars, but still,
which
they're
also
definitely a lot
helps.
to handle.
Yeah, which also helps with the
Yeah.
handling and having to be able to science out stagger and pressures, especially on the right rear and the right side tires, to go and make them last, and also give you the kind of grip that you need in the corners. Definitely follow Josh, and we're gonna get into that here because we're calling it a night here. I had to go and do my own pit stop there for a couple seconds, since old age has kicked in. I drink a lot of water. Obviously, I can't hold it. Josh, where can we follow you on social media? Where can we follow you in terms of Twitch streams, so we can watch you do your iRacing? Yeah.
Well, I mean, as always, follow on Twitter at JP Huffline, and then Twitch, where we'll have the iRacing stuff and any other video games, twitch.tv/usailor2. We'll try to let you know when we go on stream and get live, and maybe you can catch me on there and watch me race.
You can follow me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can follow our show at Grip Strip Pod on Twitter, along with philipgmatthew.com, which is WordPress, where you can also find our show. We are on Podbean, we're on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, most anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find the Grip Strip Podcast. And follow us, give us a like, go and subscribe, the whole bit. And subscribe to some of our friends, some of the people that we've worked with and we collaborate with as well, with their great content. And we'll be back next week, episode 53 of the Grip Strip Podcast, which will be very Formula One heavy in regards to previewing the 2021 World Championship, Bahrain Grand Prix, of course, and just in general, what were we going to experience? What do we think we're going to see here in the 2021 World Championship? And got 12 hours of Sebring recap. We're going to have Sandown, V8 Supercars, NASCAR at Atlanta triple header, and then leading into the Bristol dirt race. So first time that Cup will first time Xfinity I think has ever been on dirt, or the first time that the Xfinity series since like they quote Xfinity series started they've been on dirt. But I think the limited late model category ran on dirt back in the 70s or whatever the heck they called it. It'll be the first time since like 1970 or 71 that the Cup Series has been on dirt. So we'll bring all that up. We'll talk about all that. Some of the ringers that'll be in those races, which will make it a little more interesting for some of the smaller outfits. And anything else that comes up here on the Grip Strip podcast. And we'll also probably, if we have time, talk about football. Didn't really get to do that today, but it's all good. We thank you for listening. Thanks, Josh, as always, for doing your thing and bringing the heat. I'm Philip Matthew. Stay safe. Take care of one another. Social distance. Wear a mask. Get the vaccine when you can, so that we can get back to quote normal and live life in a way that we can go and enjoy life and truly do the things that we want to do. Take care. God bless, and good night.